All right, what's going on, guys? Mulatto History channel here with my good friend. He is basically an expert in the Haitian Revolution and the history of the mulattoes within Haiti. That's part of his heritage, his background. And so we have a lot to talk about. This is going to be part two from the previous stream that we both collaborated on with the in regards to Haitian mulatto history. Just really quick before we get into this, I just remembered there's a comment someone left here. Okay, this guy always puts interesting comments. Interesting, not in a, pleasant way, I should say. He says right here, teach the truth. Toussaint was a free, light-skinned Creole. Was he? I don't know. And they
No,
started,
he wasn't.
it's like revisionist. They have a lot of this revisionist history from a lot of these kind of conspiracy theory, sectors on the internet. And because some of them, they're even claiming that all the princes and kings and royalty in Europe were all like light skinned. Like there's a lot of conspiracies that they push. There's people out here, they come over to my channel and they push these conspiracies and they don't really have any kind of hard concrete facts or resources. They just push this whataboutism. It's the conspiracy stuff is very bizarre, bro.
I think
Um,
I think he's mixing up two events because he have a point when he say like the light skinned mulatto Creoles started the revolt whatsoever. That is true. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
if he's referring to maybe Vincent Auger or pre earlier revolts, yeah, he's right. But Toussaint is not related to those. Toussaint was actually a free affranchi, which is a black slave that got his freedom basically.
Right. Yeah, that's my understanding of it. I just wanted to highlight that because it's comical. Yeah, man. Where should we start on the War of the Knives, correct?
Yeah, I just want to make like a quick review of the last thing we said. A couple of things I want to address on the War of Knife, and yes, it will be very quick. Then we can jump on the subject of the stream. And the thing is, the War of the Knife it happened in 1799 to the 1800. Sorry, 1800. Yes. Um, the reason why it happened mainly is because it was a struggle for the control of Saint Domingue. After the British and Spanish invaders withdrew and slavery had been abolished, the revolutionary needed to decide who would control the colony. Well, Toussaint Louverture controlled the north and most of the west, and André Rigaud controlled the south. Both were powerful generals, and there were no clear hierarchy approved by France. Like they had no clear differences that was approved by France. And this eventually produced a tension over who would rule, like who meant to rule the entire colony, basically between Rigaud or Toussaint. And the second reason was racial and class tension. Like, though both sides were free people of color or formerly enslaved, the conflict had underlying class and identity division. Rigaud represented mostly the gens de couleur libre, the mulatto mixed race elite, a group that had owned land and property before the revolution, right? And Toussaint represented primarily the formerly enslaved black majority. Even though both wanted equality, they had different visions of society, and old prejudice between the two groups resurfaced, right? So this is very important, especially because you have been exploring the history of the gens de couleur, right? We have been exploring the history of the mulattoes, and the War of the Knives is the moment where the political project clash with Toussaint. Okay, um, the third main reason is economic competition between regions. Like the wealthy southern region controlled by Rigaud, that was much more wealthy, more prepared. They didn't want to lose autonomy. They didn't want to submit to Saint Louverture, of course, we know for obvious reasons. And they also centralized economic policies, give up control over trade and plantation production. Rigaud didn't want, and he feared that the northern side, or Toussaint, would want to dominate the entire colony and marginalize the southern mixed race aristocracy. Basically, because when Toussaint was working with the Spanish, he clearly stated he wanted to have a solely black colony. He wanted to have a black nation, basically. So Rigaud was in disagreement with that. Plus, um, Toussaint Louverture nephew, his name was Moise, and when Toussaint Louverture reopened the colony to the French planters and the mulattoes to open back the plantations and work, and he didn't reestablish slavery, but he did establish forced labor to Saint. Well, his nephew named Moise, alongside Dessalines and other of Toussaint generals, they did ravish a lot of mulatto people. Like because Moise resented white people and mixed race people because I think his mother was abused by a white man, and he never agreed with Toussaint, allowing them coming back and like leaving them basically doing whatsoever, because Toussaint was very good with the white French, and because of that, Moise he unalive a lot of mixed race people that has anything to do with his grudges, and that caused also tension with the southern faction because they say, well, if they are doing this, plus they want a hierarchy over like on the colony overall, we're gonna have to fight them because So yes, um, and the last thing I want to mention about it is that the conflict has had some influence of foreign powers. For example, the conflict also fueled by outsiders players like the United States under John Adams. They secretly supported Toussaint Louverture because he opposed France and protected American trade. And yes, and on the southern fraction, and the Spanish side of the island, which is Santo Domingo, they were supporting Rigaud because when Americans were supporting Toussaint, they had a lot of, let's say, more resources to fight the battle. But even though I had a theory because I was speaking with a gentleman. He's a senior person. I think his name is Kiskeyano on TikTok. He looked like a diplomatic person. He know about his stuff, right? And I asked him how Rigaud did lose the War of Knife because even though his army was less numbered, but they had much more. They were much more prepared than the Toussaint army. They had more knowledge about war siege, more training, more military expertise. How they lose the battle? We know Toussaint had the numbers and he had the support of foreign powers, but most of his men didn't know how to fire a cannonball, for example. So what he told me is that inside the southern faction they had infiltrators. Basically, they have traitors, and United States and the French they offer them medals and territory. They also have offered them position to betray the Rigaud strategy on the war. He told me that was the main reason he lost because they could have easily trapped them inside Jacmel and bombed them. And so yes, he told me that there were a lot of insiders and traitors on the southern faction. This is why he wasn't able to sustain the major battle because Toussaint had the numbers. Yes, let me see. Ultimately, there was also about competition and like competing visions for Saint Domingue. Toussaint vision, a unified colony, centralized, ruled by mainly the black that we used to do the majority of the labor. And in Rigaud's vision, a southern region controlled by the traditional free, colored elite, mulattoes, and preserving the influence and autonomy. So yeah, that's a review I wanted to touch on the War of Knife. Like people need to. I think the last review was a little bit. I wanted to give people a little context on why this really happened. So we can move on the next. Um,
Definitely. I wanted to touch on something real quick as well. And it says here they faced legal discrimination despite wealth, barred from office, and often humiliated socially by whites. Now, you were speaking in regards to the mulatto class, correct?
yes, we are talking about the mulatto class. The thing with the mulatto class is that nothing like the in the constitution of Saint Domingue. Well, Saint Domingue didn't have a constitution, but um, they had decrees. They had rules on the colony, and there were no laws that prohibited mulatto from wearing certain clothes, from owning properties. Most of them inherit those properties from their fathers or their mothers, or mostly on the European side. The thing is, you will have some, like they had a thing in Saint Domingue called the Club Mesiac, right? And the Club Mesiac was one of these lobbies, but they had many lobbies of basically, we can say white supremacists. We know the term white supremacist didn't exist back then, but it was basically a group of white French colonials, like planters, that they decided to keep the whole world, the hierarchy of the island within themselves, within the white people. So they saw the mixed race people as traitors that could turn against them at any moment. And because of that, they, in some aspect, they exclude them from a lot of things. So they exclude them from some spaces, from office, from politics. Even though many mulattoes were still influent in politics, they were still in office, but they try to exclude them as much as I can. Because the Grand Blanc were basically their authority of the island. So many of these Grand Blanc, they hated the mixed race, the mulattoes. Some of them were actually had sons with the mulattoes, that had sons with the black slaves. They did actually give them the privilege, because they were like one. The whites were actually pro mixed race mixing. They were aside with the Creoles, with the gens de couleur, with the mulattoes. But those who were like part of these lobbies, like white supremacists, like the Club Maesiac and many others, they were against the mixed race people. And this is why this whole movement started. This is why Andre Rigaud was fighting the royalist whites, because you had some of them that hated mixed race people too. So it was difficult for the gens de couleur, as you see, because you have the black rebels that doesn't trust you 100%, and they have resentment towards you. But you also had, from your other side, the white supremacists that will try to exclude you for what's belong to you. You understand what I'm saying? So yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. And even from my observation, it's been said how within the French colonies and French territories, how there's more of a kind of assimilationist, strategy in regards to the kind of African and French like relationship, to where they've kind of wiggled out and made space for mulattoes to kind of coexist and commingle and to have our own autonomy, so to speak, because that's true even within the Louisiana. There's a history of mulatto and Creole communities there
I want to
versus,
mention. I
yeah, go
want to
ahead.
mention. Sorry. History.
You're
History.
good. Go ahead.
I wanted to mention something very quick. It's not 100% factual. I'm not saying that the two nations, or these two group of people, two ethnicities are the same, but they are deeply connected. Like the Louisiana Creoles, the Creoles from Louisiana and New Orleans, they are deeply connected from the beginnings and the roots with the people from Saint Domingue. Basically, we can say the Mulatto Haitians. Like if we talk about 6 or 5 generations ago, when Saint Domingue was still a colony, they were deeply connected with the Louisiana Creoles, because like these two nations of people were under the French rule. So Louisiana and Saint Domingue was a part of the same colony. It's the same with Martinica and Guadeloupe. So yes, basically the same norms and laws that will apply in Louisiana will also apply in Saint Domingue.
Exactly. That makes perfect sense because historically, when we look at like the War of 1812 here in the United States, a lot of the mulattoes who fled Haiti, they migrated to Louisiana, in the Louisiana area. And when 1812 happened, a lot of the mulattoes joined forces with the United States military to fight against the British during that war. So it's interesting history, the mulatto history, with that migration from Haiti to New Orleans or Louisiana primarily. But yeah, cool.
It's very interesting. I'm very fascinated for the history of this class of mulattoes, like the gens de couleur. I had a history from mixed race elite, especially mulatto people, paldos from South America, and all of them are fascinating. But especially this class of gens de couleur and the Creoles, I'm deeply fascinated about it. You can find them bangled all over the place. You have this historical figure called Alexander Dumas, was a very, very, very well known commander in France, in Paris. Even still today, if you go to Paris or any region in France, people are gonna know about Alexander Dumas and what he contributed in Napoleon's army. It's the same in other regions of the island. For example, the Jean Baptiste Point du Sable, which is the founder of Chicago. He's another man from Saint Domingue, and his family was from Saint Domingue. I don't know if he was already Haiti, but he exiled to United States and he ended up founding Chicago. And you have many other people from Saint Domingue who actually fought in the Louisiana battles and New Orleans battles, like the Joseph Savary, for example, Lambert, and it's very I'm very fascinated by this Jean de Couleur whole history.
No, it's great. I know it's extremely fascinating. I wanted to segue here to these questions because this is kind of the central theme because we're asking a question, why the betrayal, right? It says right here, if both did equally to defeat the French, meaning mulattoes and then the black Haitians, and they fought for the same thing, which is liberty, freedom, right? Why were the mulattoes erased from Haitian history? Because that's why I'm happy we're having this conversation. And I really enjoy listening to your perspective because most of the sources and the people that I hear on the internet or in the blogosphere and they're Afrocentric, whenever they talk about the Haitian Revolution and Haitian battle, they always frame mulattoes as being duplicitous traitors who sided with the French. That is the dominant narrative that is out there in regards to this history. So you don't really have like mulatto people who are pushing back against that and fighting for the mulatto narrative and telling a different side of history. So it's important that we have these voices like yours out here to tell the other side of the story, right? Because everyone else is basically pushing the narrative to paint us as, duplicitous. So that's the key thing. We're erased from history, but when they do talk about us, they're basically saying that we're traitors and that we have no involvement in it. But when we learn about, Lamartiniere and her battle, and then also with the uh in her battle Crete Pirot, and then we learn about Rigaud, we learn about Vincent Auger, we learn
Mhm.
about these mulattoes and their contributions to Haitian liberation, right? It's like those stories get erased, they're not told. They always try to paint mulattoes as being duplicitous traitors. And this is a key thing why we need channels like this and voices like yours to push back against the narratives that are, very overwhelming. What's your thoughts on that?
Which is also very ironic because when we talk about the the Saint Domingue Revolution and the later Haitian Revolution, we can point at one group and say those people were traitors, because if that is the case, we're gonna call many of these petty blancs like little white traitors. You're gonna call all these like Toussaint Louverture. You may have to call Toussaint Louverture a traitor too. You may have to call Dessalines a traitor too. You may have to call most of the Haitian leaders as traitors, because at some point the same people were oppressed and ended up rebelling against their slave masters, who were the French royalists, the lobbyists like Club Meshack, etc. Toussaint Louverture, at some point, he worked with the French. He betrayed the Spanish. He was working with the Spanish, but he betrayed the Spanish. He joined the French. The only reason he joined the French is because the French offered him honors. They gave them honors. They offered them money, and they also promised them that they're gonna abolish slavery. But as soon as the French showed their true colors, that their true intentions was never abolishing slavery, Toussaint back up again. He betrayed the French and continued doing his whole thing. So my point is it's more complex than that. Like, for example, in the case of most mulattoes on the southern region, like Pétion, for example, he was from Saint Domingue because they were born in the Creole region, in the Jean de Couleur, in the French colonies, right? But they were French in soul. What I mean by that doesn't mean they were traitors. That means, like, if you're half French and half African, right? If you're three-quarter French and one-quarter African, mean that you are mostly French. And if you're half and half, like Boyer, for example, you still half French. So in situations like that, they will be educated in France. Their fathers will recognize them. I know in some cases, like La Martiniere, because Basically, Malamatinier father, he had like a adventure with Lamartine mother. This is why he was bastardized, you know. But in many other cases, like Pétion cases, for example, it was not an accident. Both of his parents were married, they recognized him. So he was fighting for the French at the beginning because that was his country, that was his nation, you know, his patriot. That's what he was fighting for. But as soon as he realized the injustices and what it takes for you to be a man in a colony, they understood why they had to, which side they had to fight for. Because at the end of the day, mixed race people, mulattoes, were also victim of this brutal hierarchy. So it's not about being like mulattoes or being traders. I think we know where this has come from. This is mostly later historians like Jean Price Mars and later historians from the 1900s, the early 1900s, were already setting up the eggs, or the, let's say, the roots for Noirism, that will later become Noirism, like this ideology where they believe the purists of the pureness of blackness, where if you have any roots in the Jean de Couleur, or if you have any French or Spanish background, you will be deemed as a traitor in Haitian history, which is blatantly not true, because we can say Dessalines and Toussaint were also traitors. They implemented forced labor, the rural code, and Toussaint even reinstated slavery after, just because the French gave him the honor and they named him as the governor of Saint Domingue. So I think it's pretty much a double standard. You know, I think many people are conflicted. They don't really read the history of what really happened.
No, that's super interesting as well. Like you said, how Toussaint reinstated slavery within Saint Domingue. That is
Yes,
insane. Yeah.
yes, he did. He did, because it wasn't the rural code. Because, for example, we know Dessalines, which is well, I don't want to backtalk him. This is a moderated live, you know, a stream. I have a lot of disagreement with Dessalines. He's not my favorite for sure, but he did not reinstate slavery, as I told before. He did implement the rural code, right? Which is very similar, but there's differences, key differences. We can say the same. But in the case of Toussaint, when he brought back the French, uh, he was named a governor, right? He brought back the French plantation owners. He basically reopened the colony for the French to be able to continue with the sugar cane plantations and all the things that were moving the economy of Saint Domingue. And for that, they had to reinstate slavery. Slavery was not abolished yet in Saint Domingue. And yes, indeed, he did. So, but we can say,
Yeah, I just wanted to segue. This comment's interesting. Puts here mixed race people also face the same narratives in regions of Africa. They are often blamed for siding with the colonizers when that's not always the case. Well, the thing is, if you're mixed race, you're basically, for all intents and purposes, like half colonizer, right? Or half oppressed or something. So it's an interesting dynamic. So, like you said, you mentioned with the French, like with people like Lamartiniere and others, where it's like, well, you're primarily or mostly French blood and ancestry. You have a French father, etc., and you were educated in France. It's like, well, that's kind of who you are, part of who you are, right?
and can I give you a little bit more context?
Sure.
Vanguard is it's so complex. Like I will give you one more example. Lamartiniere, for example, I'm talking about Louis de Lamartiniere, like the husband. He, as I say, his mother was a quadroon. I know she was a mulatto. His mother was a mulatto. The father was a Frenchman, and the issue with him is that the father had an adventure with her. It was not forced. It was not a forced relation, but it was an adventure. So he became like a bastard, and in that sense, and you know, at that time, that wasn't that, socially speaking, was not a thing. They will approve, never. They will never approve that son or that conception. So he was bastardized, even though the father recognized him, because they appeal to each other. He looked almost French, right? But they still didn't give the full recognition as, for example, Pétion, who has a who had a proper, like both of his parents had a proper marriage and relationship, which means most likely La Martiniere was from a different social status than Pétion. It was a different class, and it was much more easier for La Martiniere to absorb these ideas of the black Haitians, for example, because I think most at the beginning La Martiniere was fighting with the black rebels, and Pétion, when during the battle of Catapirot, he arrived on the island with the French. He arrived on the island with the French. So you can see the dynamics when people just make those assumptions, saying, "Oh no, mixed race, mulattoes, or traders, or John." They don't really know the history. It's the same way you had a lot of black people, but they were a minority. But you have some black people that were free. They were called affranchis. They didn't have the same advantage as mulattoes. They were in a different category, in a different label, but they were still above the slaves. And some of these affranchis also hold slave at some point, and they will dress in French clothing. So it's very complex, and you will have a very few, above 1%, mulattoes that were born into slavery. That was a thing in the French colonies too. It was not very common, but it was a thing. One example is what her name, Cecile Fatima. She was a Mambo, but she's a voodoo priest, and her father was a Corsican prince, and her mother was, I don't know if she was Congolese, but the father didn't recognize her. Most likely it was a forceful relation, and the
Well,
conception was not, you know. So it's different. It's different for each character, but most likely when you are Jean de Couleur, both of your parents were conceiving on a willful marriage. But it depends. It depends. The case may vary.
well, also I wanted to add, wasn't uh, Jean Marie Lamartiniere, wasn't she born on a plantation, if I'm not mistaken? And she was a
Yes,
mambo as well. She was trained in classical voodoo.
Marie-Jean Lamartiniere, correct?
Yes.
Yes, that's what I read about her. I think I don't remember exactly because I need to have the information right now, but I that's what I read about her like a very few days ago. She was born into a plantation, and she read, but I don't believe she was a slave. I think she was a worker on the plantation,
Okay, yeah.
but she wasn't merely a slave. But you actually had mulattoes on Saint Domingue that were born as slaves, and some of them would escape and go maroon. But you had that. It was less than 1%, but it happened. It depends on the case. Depends on. So I think it's merely hypocrisy. I think it's bias, and we all know where this has come from. This come from this typical resentment when there's mixed race people. I think it can also be futurism. It can also be noirism, Afrocentrism, all type of, because the same type of discrimination the gender couleur face from white people, they had the same issues later with the majority of black Haitians.
Exactly. And that's what is we're all gonna get down into, because that's what we really see across the board. And I relate to that, and it translates even into the Americas, or in North America, for instance, United States, because it's the same exact dynamic that plays out where we have faced discrimination from the white supremacist. But now, once the black supremacists get more social political power, now the mulattoes are facing discrimination and racism from the black supremacists, right? So it's interesting how the history kind of repeats itself in different parts of the world. We see within Haiti, United States, and even now in Brazil. Where the black movement's gaining steam, and they're trying to absorb the Pardos into the black group. Same thing with the coloreds in South Africa, where the white supremacists were basically maneuvering the coloreds, and then now that the black supremacists have more power, you have the guy there in the African economic freedom fighters, Julius Malema. See, legit black supremacists there in majority black nation, South Africa. Now they're openly discriminating against the colored people. So it's interesting, around the world, we analyze this dynamic where we kind of face this interesting position and this hate from both sides. It's just we have to find a way to strategize and navigate through society. And what sharing this information is very helpful for people listening.
Yeah, I agree,
Look at
100%.
Do you want me to check this guy's comments out first before we go into the next slide about this is why are the mulatto elite widely erased? Because I do want to get back into the erasure, but I want to kind of segue to this guy's comments real quick. I think we can check it out. He
Yes,
says here,
we should check some of the comments and yeah, and reply if it's necessary.
it's the same guy. I don't know. I've never seen him before, but he says here, so just because people are mixed, they can be conservative, liberal, exactly, or fight some colonizers, though. May Spanish French ancestry nationalism also plays a factor. He says Dominican Republic is a prime example of harmful agendas. Dominicans not only have to be suspicious of white supremacy, but also some of the more radical Afrocentrics agenda that spread misinformation. There's a lot of that, and a lot of those people, they're educated in the US, just like as you were alluding to with the Norism, the Norist. A lot of those philosophies, those black supremacist philosophies, came by way of the US, correct?
Yes, you
Papa
came
Doc?
from
Yeah.
yes.
And that's the same thing. I think with the Dominican Republic, a lot of the people who are pushing this Afrocentrism and this colorism talk, they're educated in the US in these universities. And it says here, for example, look at the colors in South Africa. Tyla correctly identifies as mixed, but certain Afrocentric groups launched attacks on her, falsely claiming she was rejecting her blackness. It's the same with us. Like as me as a mulatto man, biracial, and I say I'm biracial, I say I'm mulatto. I'm accurately identifying myself, what I am, genetically, biologically, culturally, etc. They're going to say, "Oh, you." A lot of people, I'm generalizing, but I'll say a lot of people. They'll say, "Well, you just want to be white." It's like I can't want to be something I am. That's part of biology. It's my
Mhm.
heritage. Like I'm just saying I'm mulatto, I'm biracial. Or you just want to be white. That's how people like translate it. It's very unfortunate, but we see the same thing happens with South African colors. The same thing happens with Dominicanos. It's like it's across the board. I'm trying to get people to analyze this information and to kind of wake up and see it for what it is. What's your thoughts on that?
I really think this is a mentality that has been ingrained into the majority of the black population by white supremacists. And I think the effect of this mentality is that from generations, many people have been profiting from dragging other peoples into this inferiorized complex. Like let's say you were a mixed race elite from Haiti in the 1930s, and some of the people living in the campo, they had a different context where they were perceived as being marginalized by the society. But when the U.S. Navy fleets arrived into Haiti, at that time they did see and they discriminated towards the mixed race elite, and they called them can I use that word on no, they called them the N words that were pretended to be French. That's what the Americans, like the white Americans, called the mulattoes in Haiti. They were the N words that were pretended to be French, and they think they were French, they spoke French, but they are N words. And they sacked Haiti at that time. I think they sacked the National Bank. They entered into the palace, they disrespected basically anyone who was there. They didn't respect any authority. So from generations, this type of discrimination of also being perpetrated towards mixed race people, racialized people, Hispanics. And I think at now in 2025, black people are using this historical complexity of racism that racialized people suffered to keep dragging down into blackness. Oh no, you're never gonna be white. Why you claiming you're white mother if you will never be seen as white? You are one of us. You're black as me. They feel like being black is basically being mistreated. So, and the one drop proof, for example, United States is another example where this inferiority complex can be shown. They believe by dragging you into the blackness, it's profiting them, so they are not alone in this dynamic where they are being discriminated. I personally think it's an inferiority complex, and it comes from white supremacy. Generally, that's my overall opinion.
I tend to agree. I think you're extremely accurate with your observation. There plays a large role, as I've said, with like the Anglo and Bantu and how there's like a colluding going on. to kind of keep this facade up, because a lot of the people here in the United States, they are yearning for white adjacency and white acceptance and validation. And but they're utilizing this kind of victim leverage for political clout and for social influence. And they look at mulattoes as being an easy target, an easy group, a utilitarian class that can be, utilized for their own political gain, for representation, for numbers. It's a very complex subject. It's only now that you see mulattoes using their voices
I
and
agree
basic.
with you. And this is why Vanguard, like despite all the discrimination, mixed race people and mulattoes all across the world, we can talk about Hispanic mulattoes, Dominicans, the mulatto pardos, Venezuelans and Brazilians, the mulatto Haitians. Despite all the discrimination that have been suffered because they were racialized people, in the case of Haiti or Saint Domingue, for example, I can always remind Black people, listen, we have got through similar circumstances because racism was perpetrated by a major force, which is the white supremacist lobby at that time, at the colony time. But even though after independence, in many of those countries, including during the colonization era, we were still above. Like, I mean, I'm not saying from a way of supremacism or racism. It's like I want you to understand. Besides this whole dynamic where complexity of racism, because anyone can go through it. Chinese people, Japanese people can go through it. That doesn't mean that mixed race people were black. We were never dragged as black. We were never seen as black. We were never portrayed as less than humans. Like, I mean, mixed race people, gens de couleur, actually are very wealthy class in Haiti and Louisiana and Martinica and Guadeloupe. They were very, very well portrayed. It's just that you had some people that wanted to, there are some purists that didn't like them. Of course, they have the power to exclude them and do some, do some stuff that will harm their communities. But it wasn't the same context of somebody who had to work from the end, like from the start of the day until the end of the night, and with nonstop. Is a whole different, it's a whole different context. Even after the revolution, you can see in the 1930s, like in the Southern fraction in Miogan and Jacques and Jeremy. In the case of Haiti, for example, you can see that the black people from the north were in the campus, were in the countryside. They had a different context than the people who were living in the metropolis, like in the center of Port-au-Spain, Pétionville. They had elite, were mixed race mulattoes. That doesn't mean they were bad people. As I say again, my previous life, no elitism had a bad context, a bad meaning. But when we say elite, we mean people that actually gain wealth from their great great grandfathers and they kept holding the wealth and they had businesses and stuff. You had actually a community of mulattoes in those countries. So I keep reminding them, even if we had been racialized, marginalized at some extent by white supremacists, it is not the same context. We need to understand that we, historically speaking, we are not black.
Precisely. Yeah, precisely. And it's the same case here in the United States, as I say, and I look at the history and everything. Never been perceived as really black. There might have been some cases where, with the extreme in the South was very different than the West Coast, East Coast, etc. Some cases where, yeah, if you're in like a white supremacist kind of clan town, where it's like literally the Ku Klux Klan, runs the jails, the police force, etc., then yeah, they'll look at the color and they'll look at your brown skin, they'll lump you in with black people. But generally across the board, like everybody knows the difference. Just people try to trick mulattoes and hoodwink mulattoes to be political pawns in this kind of scheme that we see going on.
Yeah, and I think too, these people, they will go after everyone. Like they will go after
Chinese
Jewish.
person. Yeah, exactly.
They will go after everyone.
Everyone, I know. That's the key thing. If they're Arabic, if you're Chinese, if you're a Mexican, like shout out to the guy, the guy, King Macho over on TikTok, right?
Yeah.
Dominican guy. He told a story before where he was playing baseball somewhere. I think it was in South Carolina or something in the South. He was playing baseball with a couple African American guys. This is back when he was like a teenager or early adult or something. And he even said that there was a group of white guys who drove by and were like, I don't know if they were part of a gang or something, but they were making some kind of like racist comments and like trying to intimidate them. So he saw that when he went down there. even ask him. I remember he said that once in one of his conversations. So like that's a real thing. Like you could be like a quote unquote white Hispanic here in
Mm-hmm.
the United States. You could be Chinese or Arabic, but it's like a lot of these like these white supremacists, they're gonna look, you're an other to them, you know?
They
So
are very purists. They are very purists. As I can.
super purist. I mean, and their lineage comes from the Puritans, from the Christian church, right? So they're super purist. Purity is very important to them. And yeah, so the context is there. Um,
Yeah.
check out
Yes.
this. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just gonna just move on to next the slide, unless you wanted to expand on that. Yeah, so the reasons for resentment. Number one, class distrust. Free coloreds, mulattoes often had property education. Education, like you said, they're obviously classically trained in France or Paris, more specifically, and were seen as closer to whites. And that's kind of what I'm drawing a parallel. We see a lot of discrimination that mulattoes face currently now in places like the United States and elsewhere, because there's that kind of same kind of envy and bitterness that people feel closer to whites, right? Many black leaders, Dessalines especially, feared they wanted to dominate the ex-slaves after independence. The funny about that is because the black leadership wanted to dominate their own,
Mm-hmm.
people, right?
A hundred
As you
percent.
said, Toussaint reinstalled slavery, right? And that labor force was going to be black people, right?
Yes.
Then number two, political propaganda. To cement legitimacy, Dessalines supporters emphasized that the slaves freed themselves and minimized the mulatto rule. This was a powerful story to bind the black majority. So the propaganda is so powerful. We see that, of course, not only with Goebbels in like World War II with the Nazi regime and how propaganda helped them. United States, we see how propaganda is very powerful, like with the military campaigns to kind of encourage young men to kind of go to war. It was more powerful back in the day with the Xers and Boomers and in the silent generation, etc. Today, it's not as powerful, but it's still effective tool. This propaganda to get these young men to kind of go to battle and stuff. But we see this with the Afrocentrics and how they rewrite history and how they paint this narrative. There's a lot of propaganda they push, and I see this when I'm analyzing this Haitian revolution, this history there with the mulattoes in Haiti, how the propaganda, and we'll get into that maybe in the future with the Norism and Papa Doc, and how that's all intertwined with how this political propaganda delegitimizes the mulatto role in fighting for freedom and justice. It's crazy stuff. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, and this is, I think this issue was mostly the effect of the War of Knife. In Saint Domingue, since we had a racial hierarchy system in the island, and as I say again, this is very important. This is why it's very important to learn history, because when you learn history, you're not gonna make these assumptions. When you're gonna call a person who's half white, basically, you're gonna call him black. It doesn't make any sense. If you learn the history, you're gonna know your ancestors had a different position and people were actually mixed race. Even Quadroon's grief, Marabout. We have an ethnicity called Marabout in Haiti. That back then it was basically a mix of everything. Somebody who's Indian, Indian from indigenous, Indian from India, with white, with black, with Chinese. They call them Marabout. With like all these people, they had a different context. Some of them were laborers, some of them were elites, some of them were etc. So in the case of the War of Knife, we know there was a lot of racial tension, class tension. They were trying to see who's gonna have the hierarchy of the island. Rigaud didn't trust Toussaint because he wanted us to have a full black nation, and this caused this whole racial. It was basically a racial war. The War of Knife was a war based, of course, on the hegemony of the island, but also on race, Marian race and social class. And the issue with Dessalines, it's of course he's a black man, and he, after proclaiming independence, he got the support from most of the mulattoes. Eventually, in the Battle of the Vertiers, if it wasn't because of Pétion, who arrived at the last minute with the mulattoes, left the French ships, and he would have never won because they basically helped to bomb the French, to bomb the French books, and so he used this narrative to protect his interest, to protect his people interests, which is convenient for him since he was advocating for a free black nation. And he was also advocating for empire, which will let him as an emperor, the first emperor of Haiti, and Haiti would have been the first black nation. So it was convenient for them for them to portray Petion the Mulattoes as last minute arrivals or traitors who side with the French. So it was merely that propaganda, and of course we can say that racial bias or racism basically.
100%. You know what's interesting? I wanted to add this point. You talking about Dessalines, who wanted to be the emperor of the island, and you see a lot of those same narratives being pushed. Like when Dominicans, people from Dominican Republic, when they have live streams on TikTok and they're just kind of building rapport with their own group and kind of, centering themselves and basically spreading love within their own group, you'll have Haitian people jump into the comments and say, the island belongs to us. We're going to make the whole island one again, and it's going to be under our rule. So
Mm-hmm.
we're seeing, even with Dessalines, with his passing, 200 years ago, you still see those same type of like philosophies or rhetoric being promulgated to where people, even randos on the internet, are still spreading this, like putting, comments out there that we still want to unite the island under us. It's crazy. I'm just pointing it
And
out there,
this
drawing the
is
parallel between the past 200 years ago and today. You still
and
have people who think like this.
and this is very uneducated. The reason why I'm gonna also give you another parallel or an example of how double standard these people are. The people who make those claims are very uneducated about this subject particularly. The reason why it's because these same people who are saying the island belong to us, they don't understand that this whole concept of the island being unified doesn't come from Dessalines. Dessalines really wanted to be the empire of the whole island, and he invaded Dominican Republic in the past, like in Mocha during the Mocha massacre. He participated in that massacre, but that was not him, because when he proclaimed himself emperor and the French retreated, even in the Noirist books, like in the Jean Price Mars, um, one of his let's say works, I think it's called the L'Histoire d'Haïti. Like it was basically a review of the history of Haiti and the treaty that was made with the French after the retreat. And in that book, the French specify the territory that they will retreat and gave up to the Saline would be until the river of the river of massacre, the massacre river. That's what this book stated, right? It doesn't say any further than that. Even in desperate wishes, he really wanted to have the whole island for himself, but it wasn't capable of such yet, because the Spanish still had the territory on the other side, and that means he would have to go war with the Spanish. And he wanted to, but the person who actually accomplished that was Jean Pierre Boyer, was actually a mulatto. He took over the other side of the island, and he ruled over there for 23 years, of course, with iron fist. Even if he was a mulatto, I really like Boyer inside of Haiti. I have claims on why I like him inside of Haiti, what things he did inside of Haiti. I can provide such in later videos, but outside of Haiti, he was not good. He was a very bad diplomatic. He ruined the relations of Haiti with Venezuela, like the Haiti with Simon Bolivar. He ruined these relations. He ruined relations of Haiti with other countries, where the French colonies also. He basically ruined Haiti relations today with Dominican republics because of the invasion of. People say it was an occupation, but on my modern standard, it was an invasion. 23 years with rural code and iron fist, he imposed some taxes on the Dominicans, very high taxes, to be able to pay the indemnizations to the French. So the thing is, this whole talk point is because many Haitians, those same Haitians who claim the island belonged to them, they hate Boyer when it comes to Haitian history. They say Boyer was a traitor. The same talking points they give with Petit Boyer was a traitor. He was a baby daddy, he was a dictator, he was horrible, he starved them, etc., which is not true. He never starved Haitians, but he said it was the worst time. But when it comes to Boyan invading or occupying DR, they say it's the best, right? You understand what I'm saying? Like there were double standards when it comes to Boyer invading and subjugating Dominican. They say yes, Boyer, we viva Boyer, yes, he's the best. But when it comes to Boyer in Haiti and the history of Haiti, they say he was the worst and a dictator. So it's a narrative. You can see it's a narrative. There's no neutral standpoint. They're not reading history and analyzing history as it is. It's just a narrative that is being promoted because you can tell me that you hate Boyer as a whole, but when you talk with Dominicans, you praise Boyer for what he did. So you are not against Boyer, you know? You have a bias. I personally say inside of Haiti, Boyer was a good leader, even though he ruined relations with other foreign nations and ended up being a tyrant for the other Spanish side.
Yeah, like you said, like because he led the troops into the occupation of Dominican Republic. But you mentioned Venezuela as well. I'm curious to know how that rule, how that took place, how Venezuela was affected by Boyer and his campaign.
I want to talk about the specific topic. I will need to date because we have a spectator. People, a lot of people are gonna watch this live stream. So I will need to name the years, the exact date, and the events. But we can do it on another live. I can give you
Sure.
the exact information, but I can give you a little like a heads up, right? Basically, Petion helped Simon Bolivar in the fight of independence against the Spanish royalists. And in two occasions, I think Simon Bolivar never interacted with Petion before. It was because of Francisco de Miranda, who was very well known in Europe. And Francisco de Miranda introduced, after Bolivar was defeated twice by the rebels in Venezuela, a man called the General Boves. Last exile, Simon Bolivar was almost broke in Jamaica. He was left without nothing, walking on the streets, and he was pleading for help, writing letters, so nobody was answering. So they come to the idea to go to Jacmel, and they met with Petion. And Petion eventually helped Bolivar with supplies. Not only Petion did it, many other nations did it, but much more later, right? When Bolivar exactly needed the help, Petion was there. He arrived at Jacmel, even though the flag of Venezuela was tied in the waters of Jacmel. Francisco Miranda tied for and waved it for the first time in Jacmel. So it was a good relationship. It was a beautiful type of exchange of commerce and diplomacy. So after a couple of years, when Boyer became president of Haiti, I think I need to, as I say again, I will need to give you the full context in the next video. But it says that there was a meeting of independent countries of Latin America and the whole region, and Haiti was not invited on the Boyer's command because I think it was because of his reign and the occupation, most likely. And Boyer didn't like that. He took it personally. So he went on Venezuela. He wrote a letter and he was demanding Bolivar to basically to pay back this help that was provided from Petion, which I think he kind of basically erased the Petion legacy. That's what I think Boyer did. He kind of erased this the mulatto, the heroism of the mulattoes of Haiti. He kind of messed up that a little bit. But I need to read the full context again. I need to give you date, and it would be a beautiful subject to talk about, right? Like what Boyer did after Petion helped Simon Bolivar.
Yeah, most definitely, man. I appreciate you sharing that. I'm actually intrigued as well. I just pulled up Boyer's Wikipedia, so I'm going to dive deeper into that and definitely check it out. So I appreciate your insight. Just want to check this comment real quick, and then I'll get back to the slide. Commenter puts, but when Dominicans, so I'm guessing this gentleman here is Dominican, just based off the comment, which is cool. I love Dominicans. You guys know me. I love Dominicans. They love me, so it's mutual. He puts a comment here. But when Dominicans, even when reasonably trying to correct these people, get accused of racism, I mean, welcome to my world. That's what they all say about me, right? Of being quote unquote far right nationalists. And sadly, I have seen this with prominent academics in the US. I want to get to that. This is an important comment because, yes, because people within the Afrocentric sphere, they are being financed by white liberals within academia to spread these, anti-mixed race messages out here and this mulatto erasure. They're
think
being funded and financed by white institutions and white liberals. I'm going to go there because it's a very serious thing. And so, yeah, the people who are like trying to frame like Dominicans as being problematic or colorist, there are a lot of these people, they are classically trained within academia and they have narratives that they're pushing.
this
They don't
this
get
gen-
challenged. Yeah.
this gentleman is a very well spoken gentleman, the person in the comment. And I also want to emphasize that I have realized recently that the white liberalism go hands to hands with the white supremacist agenda. It's just that they advocate for different things. Like some of the advocates for the LGBT rights, they advocate for other type of agenda, but both of them have this racism ingrained in them because they are not advocating for people not being discriminated against based on their race. They're advocating for another type of racism where you have to be above me, you have to be a victim. Oh, yes, you are less than me. If you say otherwise, you're the worst thing on earth. And this is what's going on with Dominicans. They have to say, they have to stay humble, they have to admit they are black, even that's not the context. They have to be above the liberal white man, otherwise they are racist or they are the worst thing on earth. I feel both white liberals and white like right wing white nationalism is basically like same thing, different covers. That's
Yes,
my
sir.
thing.
Yes, sir. It's two sides of the same coin. I think a lot of people are figuring that out. That's why I try not to get too like deep into the left right paradigm as far as politics because I see a lot of, I'll say there's a lot of Dominicans who are pro Dominican, and I see where they're really pushing to the right, like pro MAGA, pro conservative, pro Trump. And it's like, well, it's like that's kind of like the same, like you're running away from the left side, which I get, I understand, because with academia, they're kind of putting a target on your back. But the right side, like they work hand in hand with the left to maintain. So I try not to it's a complicated subject. I'm just gonna leave it at that and just continue on because I don't want to segue from our main, discussion here. So right here, it says right here, the bottom paragraph here on the slide, mulattoes were scapegoated for Haiti's economic and political problems over the centuries. So we're looking back over the centuries, past 200 years, while Black leaders often seized power through populist support or force. We can say with the Toussaint Louverture and then also with Papa Doc,
Yes.
the populist rhetoric, right? But they conveniently scapegoat the mulattoes. Now, I'd like you to speak on, from your experience and historical knowledge, of what are some of the popular narratives that they push that's anti-mulatto as far as scapegoating mulattoes, saying that they're the downfall of Haiti's economics. Like, what is it that mulattoes have done? What they're saying, the populist kind of black supremacists, what are they saying that mulattoes have done to undermine the economics of Haiti? Because from what I understand, Haiti is very vastly resourceful. They have a lot of agriculture, etc. But like they're trying to scapegoat mulattoes. I want your expertise on this issue.
It's I think they are referring to the past 20 decades. Like the we all know the situations of Haiti right now, the country, like how things are being run over there. It seems like a nowhere land, nobody's land. It's like the wild west basically. Anything could happen to anyone at any time and nobody's gonna say anything. It's like and the thing is, I'm not gonna dive in too deep into that because I know there's a lot of gossip. I don't have clear sources of information right now. Right now, most of the information are coming from a group of criminals. Like this group of criminals are the ones that claim this and claim that over a group of people who own business and billionaires. And there's like a war going on. You have high office criminals, the white collars, blue collar criminals, and you also have the ghetto criminals. So basically, two sides of the same coin again. And I don't want to dive too deep into it, but there's a lot of saying right now of mulattoes being the downfall of Haiti, or mulattoes being the ones that dragging down the economy. Well, Haiti is living in um, unconscious communism type of system. The reason being is because today I was speaking with one of my Dominican friend um, on social media, and we were talking because we always talk about the truth of Haiti. And I'm a plan. Even if you see me spending time on TikTok, I'm always working. Right now, I was changing to a next job, and I had some issues right there. But I'm been planning a lot of stuff. I'm already starting on my new job and etc. So I was talking with her about the soul of Haiti because it's like empty, right? And all this is gonna correlate with what I'm going to say. It's empty. It's pretty much empty. Soul of Haiti, Jacmel. It's beautiful, right? It doesn't have any crime. It's poor, all right? I'm gonna be honest. It's poor, but it don't have any crime. You don't have any crime rate. You don't have that much the natural disaster over there. It's not overpopulated. It seems like a ghost town because most of the places are very empty. So I was talking to her, what if I go and just invest there, bro. Just open like a small boutique and just open a resort and just open like basically bring contractors, a group of Venezuelan contractors, and actually bring Venezuelans to buy stuff there because they're gonna live cheap. There's not much people taxes that gonna stop us from doing that. We can just go over there and and to cover the salt, bro. Like bring contractors, fix the roads, and do stuff because Jackmere, for example, wow, it's very beautiful, bro. You see the old houses, like old colony houses. It seems very old, but it's very cultural. When you walk there, you feel this cultural connection. You bring me back to the Saint Domingo type of era. So I was talking with her and she told me, you know what, Jordan, that would be very difficult because Haiti doesn't allow foreigners to invest and buy properties like that. There's something in the constitution that prohibited you from doing so. And I would say, what? What is that? And she actually showed me an article of the constitution that say, for example, there was a lady, she was Haitian, and she married to a foreigner back in the 1930s. And because of sorry in the 1867, around that time. And when she came back to Haiti with her French husband, she was prohibited and banned from buying properties in Haiti and owning any type of land. So basically in Haiti, for you to be able to invest or having buying estates, you need to be a local. If you want to have this unlimited um, advantage, if you have money, you have to be a Haitian. You need to have a Haitian passport. And I say, wait, bro, this makes a lot of sense because most of these so-called business owners or billionaires in Haiti, they all born in different countries, but they all like they left their real nationality to have the Haitian passport. It's not because they love Haiti, it's because they know the advantage. Like Haiti is a ruleless country, lawless country. They can do whatever. They wouldn't have no sorts of taxes or high taxes. They can underpay the people. And if they have this the Haitian passport with all the money, they could buy many acres. But for you as a foreigner, as a Dominican or Venezuelan or American, if you want to invest, let's say in the South, which are very, very beautiful places, very safe, you have no crime, no gangs. It's poor, but because it's poor, you will have um, much more resources to develop it because you, with your money, with your currency, you will be able to buy estates, create boutiques, create malls, etc. And you wouldn't be able to do that. You wouldn't be able to own many acres. You wouldn't be able to invest. You wouldn't be able to basically create an economy on that region because you are not a foreigner and you are limited from doing so. You can only have a small. She told me, well, I forget what the percentage. And I say this have to change. And she also explained me a lot of communist type of um, and rule of laws Haiti have in their constitution that prohibit Haitian people from basically progress. So what that have to do with your question? It have to do a lot because the Haitian issue right now, it seems like an anarchy. It seems like there's an elite who are actually oppressing people, but it's not only about that because you have this elite in the United States, you have this elite in Brazil, you have it in Venezuela. Venezuela right now is being corrupted mainly by the government, the oligarchs are not mainly related to that. We know the governments have been, let's say, opposed to the oligarchs in Venezuela, and the governments are the ones that are actually messing up Venezuela with the same communist type of socialist type of reforms and in the rules they implement in the constitution, like you have lack of private property. People do not respect private property, for example. This is a very common thing also in Haiti, and the reason why Haiti is being messed up is because of the government, their constitution, and of course the people who take advantage of the situation. And you also have a lot of education, people who have no education. You have a culture of violence that, for me, it's mainly rooted in this ideology of Maoism, because this Haiti was never a violent place. We know the revolution was a very violent revolution, just like the American Revolution, just like the independence from wars with Spain in Venezuela. It was very violent, but Haiti was never a place where it was a violent place. We have gangs kidnapping people. This is happening right now because, as I say again, it was a decay on the culture and the society that was caused by Noirism during the early 1940s, 1950s. You have unlimited violence on the capital, like people would behead people on broad light, like broadcast it, and parade the people's body. And Papa Doc, for example, wouldn't do anything about it. He actually has his own militia groups where the Tontomac who are allowed to do such. So the issue of Haiti is not the mulattoes, like people say. People want to say mulattoes this, mulattoes that. Eventually, elite of Haiti, very few of them are mulattoes. Like majority of them are either Libyan, Syrians, Arabs, from all over the place. You have Americans too. You have Americans. You have from all over the place. So it's this narrative. It's mainly based and rooted on Noirism. It's come from the Duvalier era where there were starting, like, we know it started with Dessalines. It started with Faustino Suluk. It started with them, but Papa Doc officialized it. And many people after generations where the grandfather were part of this group of Tonto Macoutes, the grandfather fight with and supported Duvalier, and they still have this mentality where they see white as evil, or the Milats as evil, even though the Milats in that era were the victims of society because of this type of rhetoric and bias, basically. So it's basically you're always using mulattoes are the evil, mulattoes are the sellouts. They think they are whites, or the mulattoes are the ones that are monopolizing the country, when it's not true. And
You know what?
go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, no, continue. I
I just wanted to add a thought. It's interesting because mulattoes were often scapegoated by black supremacy, the same way how Jewish people are scapegoated by white supremacy. You notice that interesting parallel there? These narratives that are pushed,
yes,
historically speaking. I
yes. Go
just
ahead.
wanted I just wanted to throw that out there because listening to your explanation, and it's just that the scapegoating is so bold and obvious.
Yes, yes. It's very the situation right now going on is very sad, because I feel like people will have been able, like in Haiti, it's very sad because I think people will have been able to make a step, to fight for the country, for their country. But the thing is, I think in Noirism, I'm not being, trust me, vanguard. I don't like victim mentality, but I think deeply, the Noirism have done a a very, very heinous effect on people's mind, because you have them fighting online with Dominicans. Although I understand, if somebody fire at your country and disrespect your country, you're gonna have to retaliate online. We do that, for example, in the Mulatto movement. We fight back with information, with you know, with arguments, educatedly. But it's not only about them replying to some people who have bias. No, it's about them creating a whole propaganda, like cooperating with Black Americans to spread propaganda towards other Hispanic countries, including Dominican Republic. You have them like fighting for everything unnecessary instead of fighting for what is actually necessary. And when they look at the problem, they're pointing out fingers like on the mulattoes. We don't you don't have that much mulattoes in Haiti. Like I think mulattoes living in Haiti right now is less than 1%. I think most of them living abroad, like me and many other people live in different places of the world. Like there's not much mulattoes in Haiti, and the ones you have on like business owners, they have different ethnicities and nationalities. You have whites, you have Arabs, you have Chinese, you have so I think you can see it. You can see this dual Afrocentrism, Noirism mentalities actually have done a damage to.
Yeah, like in when I've analyzed this kind of Haitian political, or excuse me, Haitian Dominican political conflict, like within the TikTok spaces, it's very apparent that a lot of the Haitians are basically getting weaponized by Black Americans, right? There's kind of this global Afrocentric movement, and they're kind of using Haitians to kind of attack other Hispanic groups, specifically like Dominicans. It's very bold and obvious in your face. We see that happening. And of course, mulattoes get kind of thrown in the mix, pun intended, because there's a lot of mulattoes in Dominican Republic, etc. And we know in the United States, the kind of dynamic we see with Afrocentrics, how they're, you know, scapegoating mulattoes and weaponizing the one drop rule against mulattoes to kind of be their political pawns. So we're starting to kind of analyze their strategies and what they're really doing and how this propaganda is permeating across social media. And it kind of, leads us to an interesting place when we're analyzing history. We're seeing a reoccurring theme going on, and we want to kind of deal with this accordingly. I want to segue because we're in the conclusion portion here. So it says after 1843, Black resentment against mulatto hegemony. Now you look at the comment I have on the screen. The gentleman puts Emperor Faustin also massacred mixed families as a target attack on his political rivals and also used as other scapegoats. So this Faustin guy, he was a Haitian politician and military commander, and he was a president of Haiti during this time, 1847 to 1849. So do you want to expand upon this time period when this and this is pre-Norism, correct? Because you put here
Yes,
20th century, Duovillers. I can't, my pronunciation, I'm sorry, is really bad. Papa Doc, I'll say, it's easier to pronounce. Papa Doc, with the Norism, I want to get into that like in the next stream as well, for sure. But like it started prior to Papa Doc, right? With this Faustin guy, this
so
emperor president, this Black resentment against the mulatto hegemony, against the mulatto elite. Could you expand upon that, please?
I don't know. I regret so much I didn't focus and send some of my research on Faustino, because on my Google Docs and all the research investigation I've done the past months, I never mentioned Faustino. I don't know why I mentioned everybody except Faustino. I may have forgot about him, but he is one of the key of this black supremacist ideology. He was on the northern region. You had some. I want to explain something. You had some mulattoes on the northern faction, and you had some mulattoes. The majority, of course, were on the southern faction. Some of the mulattoes supported the northern faction. The thing is, at the moment they were supporting the northern faction, Christophe, even though he excluded, he kind of marginalized mulattoes. He have some mulattoes who actually well, we're too I don't know what is the word in English. We have something we call in Spanish in Venezuelan halabolas. Halabolas is somebody who, when you reject that person, he gonna still follow you. He gonna still kiss your butt, basically. So you have some mulattoes on the northern faction that were actually pro Dessalines and pro Black. And the thing is, with Faustino, some of people were part of the mulatto elite. They helped Faustino to get in power. They got him elected democratically as a president, but Faustino became an emperor. I don't know how he became an emperor, if you can read that on the screen for me. And most of his political rivals were, for some reason, mulattoes. They say that the massacres were not directed only to mulattoes. It was all people were educated, but
Right here.
it come very casual. A vanguard was a casualty, or it was very coincidence here that most of his victims were mulattoes. That's
You look
strange.
right here. It says, however, within a short time, surprisingly rejected his backers and began a consolidated himself as the absolute ruler of Haiti. Right here,
Hmm.
he organized a private militia, the Zinglings, and proceeded to arrest, kill, and burn out anyone who opposed him, especially mulattoes, thus consolidating his power over the government, especially mulattoes. So this was a targeted attack on the mulatto population. This is clear in English. This is history
This is
for the
history.
audience to understand. This is real history, real implications, and you, yeah,
So basically, sorry, Venguel, he was a president first, then he became an emperor, right, by force.
sure.
What I know so far is that some of the mulatto on the north, on his region, because he descends from Christophe, Dessalines, and these people, some of the mulattoes on that region on the north helped him to get political power to become a president. But then he became a dictator, and from a dictator, he self-proclaimed himself an emperor, just like Dessalines did. He, of course, then the massacres came out. The intellectuals, the mulattoes, mostly mulattoes, he executed. And the Zingli militia stuff, it gave like Papadoc. I think Papadoc took most of his inspiration from Faustino. Like I always tell my Dominican friends that Faustino was the inspiration for Noirism when it comes to Papadoc. Even before Noirism did exist, that was pretty much before, like years before the Noirism, but it was mainly like this whole concept of black supremacy, persecuting and unaliving mulatto. It started with Faustino.
That's interesting. We're gonna have to revisit that when we talk about Norism because it's what's interesting. I'm looking at this too, analyzing this, where it's like, okay, the first, like with the Haitian Revolution about liberty and justice, etc. But at the same time, you still have black elites and black supremacists who still want to be like emperors and dictators. And I always say it's like a lot of the black supremacists, they just want to be white supremacists. They just want to have power. So it's not really like they'll proclaim like virtuous and like democracy and freedom and liberty and all this stuff. You look at with Haiti as that example, but how is it that this Faustin guy claimed himself as emperor, and then also with Dessalines, it's like it wanted to rule the whole island as emperor, and then Toussaint Louverture wanted to employ more slaves. So you're seeing the same type of dictatorial mindset being displayed, but it's very like hypocritical at the same time when it's like, oh, justice and liberty and all this, but yet they just want to be the boss. It's politics, it's just politics. Yeah.
This is all it's about. It's about them wanting to be the boss, and this revenge mentality, the noirism, is always come from because mulattoes, they were a different class. They were above the blacks, and especially black slaves in Haiti, and they have this resentment where even though the mulattoes participated and took, I will have the audacity to say that to almost almost the majority of the responsibility of the revolution, they're still being outcasted and called traitors. I'm not taking out the let's say the credit from Dessalines and his men, because they were basically the hand, like the canon, like the people on the front line. They were the front people on the frontliners. The people were fighting on the ground. We know that. We're not gonna take the credit from them, but also you have the mastermind behind it. The people who trained this whole, who basically fabricated this whole revolution and fought it until the end. So you're gonna outcast them, and you basically trying to take the role, because as far as I know, even after Faustino, he was unalived by mulattoes, right? After even Faustino, the mulatto elite was still ruling until Papadoc. It was a back and forth. So it was basically them trying to take over, like them being like they wanted to be the hegemony of that country. That was the issue.
You know what's interesting? Because you said like with the mulatto elite, even within Papa Doc's kind of reign, you still have some people speculating the mulatto elite is still very strong within Haiti today. There's still people who speculate that and throw that out there that there's still mulatto elites in Haiti today. I'm not gonna say who mentioned that or uttered those words, but there's still speculation there. I would have to like really research it more, but that's why I appreciate people like you because you're able to educate me on a lot of these things that like we're in the United States, we're oblivious to this, unfortunately. But that's why, it's great to kind of build connections and share information and compare notes, and we can kind of really get a grasp and see what's really going on and challenge the narratives as well. Um yeah, I think this has been great, man. It's been really good. I appreciate this one. Obviously we could go like way deeper into the subject. But I don't know if there's anything else you want to add on this because I think for sure next time, like, I mean, I really want to get into the whole Norism and also with the Jeremy Vespers, because I remember I had a gentleman who commented who really wanted kind of more details into that one. So I'm definitely gonna have to do way more thorough research because that's what kind of started this. I feel like for me, what really sparked my interest with this is when you shared with me Jeremy Vespers a few months back. And I was like, holy crap. There was actually like a massacre of mulattoes like in Haiti, like a targeted attack. Like that, like really sparked an interest because I was like, that right there, that historical moment, it shatters all the narratives that people push about saying how, you know, the mulattoes have always been seen as black and that, well, whenever there's a race war, the mulattoes will be, but then it's like you have a group of black people violently using race wars attacking mulattoes. And it's like that history has to be told because it's going to destroy narratives that are out here that are put in place to
And
basically neutralize mulattoes. Go ahead.
and Vanguard, this is something I always like to bring. There's a reason I always like to bring Haitian history is because we have never been seen as black. Like this is very important too. Even within Haitian history, you can tell if one group is targeting another because of skin color, because of background, ethnicity, or proximity to whiteness. You can tell that they are not the same race or whatever you want to claim they are. So this is the reason why my history, the history of Haiti, these people have never like these people, black people, they have never been related to mulattoes. Like they have never been seen as mixed race people or mulattoes. Like it's two different things. I don't know where they come with that. Maybe United States after very late, when the wardrobe rules start being a thing and people start holding the wardrobe rule. But even within the United States, before you have some, I don't know, you can educate me on that. For what I've heard or what I've read, there was some key differences in the categorization. They were seen different, you know. I don't know. In my case, from the Haitian history, like there were never black people. You had a mulatto president that was running for president as a opposition of Papa Doc, and it was clear when you do the research on these two leaders and their proposition. You had Papa Doc, the black leader, revolutionary, Noirism. Then you read this other gentleman. He says mulatto, the mulatto candidate specific mulatto candidate. It doesn't say a black, it doesn't say light skin, it says mulatto, you know?
Yeah, I wish it was like that more here in the United States. But you know what it is? A lot of mulattoes have been programmed and they falsely just identify themselves as black. You know firsthand, you see it all over on TikTok where these mulattoes who got two mulatto parents, they're sitting here saying, I got two black parents and they got mulatto parents, right? So that's the thing. I think mulattoes like they one drop themselves into blackness because they feel like it gives them a more a better advantage. They feel like they can be kind of propped up and be kind of pedestalized or be deemed as special within black society in America. So that's what I feel like is the biggest thing. It's not white supremacy that's forcing mulattoes to be black because white supremacists know we're not the same as black. A lot of the white supremacists, they fear mulattoes more than black people. It's mulattoes who one drop themselves into blackness. That's one of the largest obstacles I see here in the United States. But that could really change. I mean, it just takes a small minority of mulattoes who have their ish together and are galvanizing and organized, and that it'll just take a small minority of us to really get things to really change. And that's my honest belief.
Okay, well, I agree with you 100%. I have seen it because I have been very close to American mulattoes. Even we have the people from different backgrounds. I mean, I think the American mulattoes right now, they are very interesting. I'm very close to the community. I can open myself very quick right now before we close the stream. The reason why I advocate and I support the fight of the mulatto from the United States, or your fight or what you're advocating for, is because it resembles a lot of what I've seen, like from the mulatto Haitians back in time, right? Like they having their own class, advocating for their own community. Even if the community is just starting, they're just starting to speak their voices. It reminds me a lot of the same struggle. And also, we Hispanics, people who are racialized, especially mulattoes, paldos, like people who have black ancestry and white ancestry or mixed ancestry in general with some blackness in them. When we go to United States, we're always like people like liberals, white liberals especially, and black people always try to claim we are black. Like I don't have any issue with that. I don't have any inferiority from being black, but I'm not black. You just it's not my reality. Well, in Venezuela, I wasn't treated like a black person. So I think you guys advocating American mulattoes, like a mulatto vanguard, mulatto mindset, for example. Some examples, I shout out both of them. The reason why I advocate for them is because when they're fighting for having their own category in the census, we're also benefiting from that because we have Dominicans supporting the movement also, and a lot of Mural Americans also feel connected with the Dominican struggle, with the Haitian narrative and the Black American narrative. One drop in Dominican. So I think at this point we're all connected with the same struggle from both sides. The white liberals who are actually white supremacists, and the black Americans who are one dropping people. That I think we're all going through that. So
Interesting. Yeah, you've come to that conclusion as well. You see how a lot of this is intertwined because the world's basically globally connected with the internet. So you see that with Dominicans, how there's like a connection, and then like yeah, with the other mulattoes in the diaspora, like in Brazil or even South African coloreds. Yesterday, after my live stream, a colored gentleman was messaging me. We're messaging back and forth, etc. It's like there's a lot of overlap I'm seeing with other groups. They can relate to the kind of general or the global plight, etc., for recognition and for mulatto identity or mixed race consciousness, so to speak. So you're starting to see that, right? Like even if we want to kind of compartmentalize our struggles, like I could say, well, I'm an American mulatto, my struggle is different than yours, and you know, this or that. But at the same time, you can kind of see there's a greater overlap, that there's a lot of us, we have a lot in common, more so than we might think. Like I realized that firsthand, spending time with Beatrice and hearing her story, and just comparing notes. I'm like, there's a lot of overlap in comparison with what Pardos are going through in Brazil, that what Americans are going through, in American mulattoes, so it's very intriguing looking at this.
can I say something quick? For
Sure, yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
what I've observed in Brazil, I observe a little bit from Brazilian because my brother, he's obsessed with Brazil. He even learned Portuguese. From what I have learned from Brazil is that they have many parallels with Americans. Like in the racial, even in the crime world, even in the political world, in the economical world, they have a lot of parallel with the United States, right? And when it comes to racial dynamics, like the black movement in Brazil resemble a lot of the black movement in the United States. And maybe right now you're realizing that maybe there's a lot of similarities too with the mixed race groups or mulatto groups in Brazil and the American mixed race groups and mulatto groups in the United States. It must be, there must be, because Brazil, in many ways, it have many parallels with United States. That's sort of many South Americans will realize that we can see Brazil have a lot of in common in with United States. Maybe because it's a huge country, it's very big, and I realized that the black movement in racial dynamics, the white people in Brazil too, they have similar racial constructs and social dynamics to people in the U.S.
Definitely, no doubt, man, no doubt. I really appreciate you hopping on here, man. I really do. I'm very grateful that you are sharing your historical knowledge with the public. You're educating us, you're helping educate us, because most of my audience is American, but obviously I have people around the world who tune in to my broadcast and stuff like that. And you're definitely helping us out, providing clarity with the Mulatto Haitian history, because a lot of this, it doesn't get told to us. We're unaware of this, and we try to look up sources online, and they erase the whole mulatto involvement in a lot of sources we read, and so it's important that we have people like you who can provide your side of the story and accurately, describe historical events so that we're made aware, and we can learn from that. So I appreciate you being on here today.
Same to you, Vanguard. I appreciate you. Thank you for having me up. Thank you for trusting me, and also thank you for having the interest or taking the initiative to have this conversation to share this to to the public, because for me it is very important, very very important. And for the next live, if you want to, since we mentioned Boyer, like what Boyer did with Simon Bolivar, we can have this on a later discussion. But for the next for the third part, if there's gonna be a third part, I would like to address the Noirism issue with Faustino. I will have to do a lot of research on Faustino, also the norms on the constitution that prohibit white people, mixed race people, at some extent, to own properties, and I will have to address a lot of issues that I didn't talk about on Noirism. So yes, it was a great live, a great conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Hey, look who popped up in the live. Shout out to Mulatto Mindset. Shout out to you, man. I appreciate everything you do.
Yeah, shalom, brother mindset. What's up, brother?
Definitely a leader in this movement, a solid leader. We need more people like him. So I appreciate him. Yeah. Yeah, man. Definitely next time with the Faustine, Emperor Faustine, because I had no idea who he was until the gentleman here, shout out to him, in the comment section mentioned him. And I'll just pull it up real quick
I, I
before I
mentioned I mentioned it him on the live stream. I say Faustino Suluk, but I think he made an emphasis on the comment. But I did. The thing is, I am surprised that I didn't really focus on him, but he did actually prosecute mixed race people and mulattoes. I think
yeah.
there is. Go ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead. I just highlighted the comment here. Yeah, this guy literally says, especially mulattoes, he targeted them. Crazy. This is history. It's history. And so for mulattoes who sit there and say, oh, when the race war happens, it doesn't matter. We're going to be with black and blah, blah. They say it's like, just look at what happened in Haiti. Look at how these isolated these events, how they specifically targeted mulattoes.
And you know
Like,
what's funny? You know what's funny, Vanguard?
and these mulattoes in America, they're so naive. They sit there and pretend like, oh, they're our best friends and they always got our back. And the white man is so evil. The white man who's,
But you know what's funny, Vanguard? You know what's funny? You want me to tell you something?
sure.
Those Mulatto Haitians, even if they were elite, even if they were privileged, even if some of them had bias with black people, they were still the same. They acted the same. They were too naive. They were like, oh no, they're gonna have a back, the white supremacists. Oh no, they are our friends. Even if we're mulattoes, we're the same. And many of them eventually, they pretty much did the same. So it's a good way also to bring awareness for people. It's not for people to be afraid, but to learn from history. It's like we are not the same people.
We're not the same, and that we should respect our differences. And as you said, we have to learn from history, because I feel like a lot of people, they don't want to highlight or talk about this history. They want to erase it the same way they want to erase mulatto history in the United States and around the world. But yeah, they want to also erase the history in regards to how other groups of people have specifically targeted mulattoes, as you see right here, especially mulattoes. And it says right here, including a massacre of mulattoes in Port-au-Prince on April 6, 1848. These are specific attacks, racialized attacks against mulattoes that
Can
nobody
you
really talks about. Yeah,
can you do a quick research before we end the stream? Can you quick research Guillaume Sam? Let me type it on the. I don't know if you would be able to.
it's French. Yeah,
Um, I will 1 second. Let me see if I can type it for you. I will have to.
I I think I heard the pronunciation Guillaume song, but it sounds French. I apologize. I'm working more Spanish, Portuguese, sign language, and Japanese. Those are like the four my four kind of core languages of interest. French is not on the list. I'm sorry, but it's
Well,
cool though. I like the language. It sounds very fluid.
it's basically a dictator that, but in this time I think mulattoes fought back. Mulattoes we always fought back. For example, after the Faustino, we took over Faustino and we still ruled. Mulattoes people were my majority ruling um, until Duvaliers. Before Duvalier, we had some intervention from black people, but it was peaceful. They were not dictators, so they were ready to go. But within those times, we had another black dictator that unalive like 100 plus mulatto politicians. For no reason, he just had them executed. And we got this person, and the Protestant, they actually got him and made him pay for what he did. But I would like for you to do a quick research on him in Wikipedia and see. It's basically Guillame, Sam, like SAM.
You
I
said
don't know.
GUI,
Yeah, GUI
the next letter
L,
M. Okay.
no L, double L, L,
Okay, got it.
AME,
Okay.
and Sam, just like Sam, SAM.
Okay. Vilburm, former president of Haiti. Okay, I see. Vilburm. Okay.
Mm-hmm. You will see actually they say something over there also about mulattoes. Like, it was constantly, bro. It was not like one isolated case where no, many times
They attacked mulattoes, yeah.
sorry.
I was saying that they attacked mulattoes. Right here, second paragraph on Wikipedia, it says, fearing that he would share the same fate as his predecessors, Sam acted harshly against his political opponents, particularly the better educated and wealthier mulatto population. So he was harsh against the mulatto population. This is what people got to be made aware of. These historical truths, because people try to spin the narrative and pretend like we were just seen as black, but you have references where it's like a lot of the militant Afrocentric black supremacists did not like mulattoes. They were envious. It says right here, they were better educated and wealthier mulattoes, so they wanted to attack. It's right in front of our face, this information.
And but I think he paid for what he did. But yes, this is information that people need to be aware of. That's 100%. It like this narrative of the black and brown and mulatto people and black people, we are the same. We're always being viewed as black in our race war. We have to join black. That's not true. That needs to be done because my people, my country, my history have been through a lot of prosecutions.
Yeah, man. I'm gonna definitely dig deeper into that. I appreciate you sharing that with me, man. This has been great, man. And I'm excited for part three because we're gonna get way deeper into that. I'm gonna do way more thorough research, and of course, you've done so much research, and I really appreciate the notes you've provided, etc. So we'll definitely explore more of this stuff for sure.
Well, same. Thank you, Mulatto History Channel, for having me up. It was very interesting and very entertaining conversation. I really enjoyed the live.
Thank you. Likewise. Peace out, guys. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Hit the like button and make sure to catch the next one. All right. Peace out.